Clara Whitmore's knees hit the dirt. Right there in the middle of Main Street, Clearwater, Wyoming territory, she fell. Her worn carpetbag slipped from her fingers. 3 rejection letters crumpled in her fist, and for the first time since burying her mother, she let the tears come. She didn't see the tall cowboy watching from across the street. Didn't hear his boots approaching through the dust. "Ma'am?" His voice was low, steady. "What kind of work are you looking for?" That question would change everything. Subscribe to our channel and follow Clara's journey to the very end. Comment your city below so we can see how far this story travels. Clara's tears made dark spots in the Wyoming dust. She couldn't stop them. Lord knows she tried. 26 years old, a trained nurse from Boston, and here she was, crying in the dirt like a child who'd lost her way home. Because she had. She'd lost everything. "Get up," she whispered to herself. "Get up, Clara, get up." But her legs wouldn't cooperate. 3 months of train rides, stagecoaches, and walking had led her here. To this moment, to this street, to absolutely nothing. The mercantile owner's words still rang in her ears. "We don't hire women with your reputation, Miss Whitmore." Her reputation. The lie that had followed her 2,000 miles across this country. Clara pressed her fist against her mouth to muffle a sob. The crumpled letters bit into her palm. 3 job rejections in one day. 3 doors slammed. 3 chances gone. She had exactly $2.37 left to her name. "Ma'am?" The voice came from somewhere above her, deep, careful, like a man approaching a spooked horse. Clara didn't look up. "Please, please go away." "Can't do that, ma'am." Boots appeared in her line of vision, dusty, well-worn, the kind that had seen 1,000 miles of hard trail. "I ain't in the habit of leaving ladies in the middle of the street." Clara finally raised her head. The man standing over her blocked out the brutal June sun. Tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the world. His hat cast shadows across a face that might have been handsome once, before something had carved hard lines around his mouth and put that distant look in his gray eyes. Those eyes were watching her now. Not with pity, not with judgment, just waiting. "I'm fine," Clara managed, though her voice cracked on the lie. "No, ma'am, you ain't." He extended a hand. "But you will be. Name's Samuel McAllister. Folks call me Sam." Clara stared at his hand like it might bite her. "I don't need charity, Mr. McAllister." "Good, 'cause I ain't offering any." His hand stayed where it was, patient. "Saw you coming out of Fuller's store, and Miller's place before that, and the hotel before that." Clara's cheeks burned. "You were watching me?" "Hard not to. You're the first woman I've seen march into Horace Fuller's store and march right back out, without buying a thing. Usually takes him an hour to let customers leave." Despite everything, Clara felt her lips twitch. He was quite thorough in his rejection. Horace Fuller's a fool. Sam's hand still hadn't moved. "Now, you gonna take my hand, or you gonna sit in the dirt all day?" Clara looked at his outstretched palm, calloused, strong, scarred across the knuckles in a way that spoke of hard work and harder fights. She took it. Sam pulled her up like she weighed nothing, steadying her when she swayed. "Easy now." "I'm fine, I just—" Clara bent to retrieve her carpetbag, but Sam was faster. "I got it." He picked up her bag with one hand, studying her face with those unreadable gray eyes. "When's the last time you ate, Miss—" Whitmore. Clara Whitmore. She lifted her chin, refusing to admit that her last meal had been stale bread 2 days ago. And that's none of your concern. Reckon it is now. Sam gestured toward a building across the street. Come on, I'm buying you dinner. I told you, I don't need charity. Yeah, I heard you. Sam started walking, still carrying her bag. This ain't charity. This is a business proposition. Can't discuss business on an empty stomach. Clara stood frozen for a moment, watching him walk away. Every instinct she'd developed in the past 3 months screamed at her to grab her bag and run. Men didn't help women for nothing. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. But Sam McAllister didn't look back, didn't wait to see if she'd follow. Just walked toward the restaurant like he expected her to make up her own mind. Something about that, about being given a choice, made Clara's feet move. She followed him. The restaurant was small but clean. A handful of tables, a counter with stools, and the smell of cooking meat that made Clara's stomach clench with desperate hunger. Sam chose a table in the corner, setting her bag beside an empty chair. Sit, he said. Not an order, an invitation. Clara sat. A tired-looking woman approached their table, her eyes flicking between Clara's dusty dress and Sam's weathered face. What'll it be, Sam? 2 plates of whatever Mary's got cooking, Bessie, and coffee, strong. Coming right up. Bessie hurried away without asking Clara what she wanted. Clara raised an eyebrow. You eat here often? Often enough. Sam removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with gray at the temples. He was younger than she'd first thought, maybe 35, but his eyes were old, ancient even. She'd seen eyes like that before, in the military hospital where she'd trained, in the faces of men who'd survived things no one should have to survive. So, Sam said, laying his hat on the table, you gonna tell me why 3 businesses in Clearwater turned you down in one morning? Clara's spine stiffened. I don't see how that's your concern. It's my concern because I might have work for you, but I need to know what I'm getting into first. Clara's heart stuttered. Work? Maybe. Depends on your answer. Bessie returned with 2 steaming cups of coffee. Clara wrapped her hands around hers, letting the warmth seep into her cold fingers. I'm a nurse, she said finally. Trained at Massachusetts General Hospital. I worked there for 2 years before... She stopped. Sam waited. Before I was dismissed, Clara finished, the words bitter on her tongue. What for? Does it matter? No one believes me anyway. Try me. Clara looked into those steady gray eyes. There was no judgment there, no eagerness for scandal, just a man waiting to hear the truth. She'd told this story so many times, to hospital administrators, to potential employers, to anyone who would listen. No one ever believed her. But something about Sam McAllister's quiet patience made her try one more time. A patient died, Clara said. A wealthy man named Harrison Cole. He came in with a fever, nothing serious, or so we thought. Dr. Edmund Shaw was attending. She paused, the old anger rising in her chest. Dr. Shaw prescribed the wrong medication. I questioned him, told him the dosage was dangerous. He ordered me to administer it anyway. And you did? No. Clara's voice hardened. I refused. I went to the head nurse, told her my concerns. She said Dr. Shaw was a respected physician, and I was just a nurse who didn't know her place. Sam's jaw tightened. What happened? I was sent home for insubordination. Another nurse gave Mr. Cole the medication. Clara's hands trembled around her coffee cup. He died that night. And they blamed you. Dr. Shaw told everyone I had given the wrong dosage before I was sent home, that my negligence killed Harrison Cole. Clara laughed, but there was no humor in it. His family believed him. The hospital board believed him. The newspapers believed him. But it ain't true. No, it's not true. Clara met his eyes. But the truth doesn't matter when a respected doctor says otherwise. I was dismissed. My nursing license was revoked. And Dr. Shaw, she shook her head. Dr. Shaw was promoted. Sam was quiet for a long moment. That why you came west? There was nothing left for me in Boston. My mother had just passed. I had no family, no friends who would risk their reputations defending me. Clara straightened her shoulders. I thought maybe out here no one would know. I could start over. But they found out. Word travels faster than stagecoaches, apparently. Fuller got a telegram from his cousin in St. Louis. His cousin knows someone who read about the negligent nurse from Boston. Clara's voice cracked. It doesn't matter how far I run. It follows me everywhere. Bessie arrived with 2 plates piled high with roast beef, potatoes, and fresh bread. Clara stared at the food like it might disappear. Eat, Sam said. Clara didn't need to be told twice. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Clara ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Because she hadn't, not really. Sam ate slowly, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. When Clara finally pushed her empty plate away, she felt almost human again. Thank you, she said quietly, for the meal. You're welcome. Sam set down his fork. Now, you want to hear about that work? Clara's heart began to pound. I thought once I told you the truth. You told me a doctor made a mistake and blamed it on a woman who couldn't fight back. That ain't exactly a unique story, Miss Whitmore. Something in Clara's chest loosened. Just a fraction. What kind of work? She asked carefully. I run a horse ranch about 12 miles outside of town, the Double M. Got about 30 horses, 8 ranch hands, and one hell of a problem. What problem? Sam's jaw worked for a moment before he answered. My men keep getting hurt. Horses are dangerous work, and I've lost 3 good hands this year because injuries got infected or weren't treated right. Nearest doctor's 2 days' ride, and he drinks more than he doctors. Clara leaned forward. You need a nurse. I need someone who knows medicine, someone who ain't scared of blood or broken bones, someone who can keep my men alive long enough to heal proper. And you'd hire me, even knowing what people say about me? Miss Whitmore, Sam's gray eyes locked onto hers. I've known men who talked real pretty and did real ugly things. I've known men who couldn't string 2 words together but would die for a stranger. Words don't mean much to me. Actions do. Clara's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you refused to give a dying man the wrong medicine, even when a doctor told you to. I know you stood up for what was right and lost everything for it. Sam leaned back in his chair. That tells me plenty about who you are. Clara blinked rapidly, refusing to let more tears fall. She'd cried enough today. What are the terms? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. $35 a month, plus room and board. You'll have your own cabin, small but private. Meals are in the main house with the men, but there's a separate dining room if you want it. Sam's expression was carefully neutral. You'll answer to no one but me, and any man who disrespects you answers to my fist. $35. It was more than she'd made at the hospital in Boston. What about my reputation? What about it? Your men will hear the stories eventually. My men will treat you with respect, or they'll find work elsewhere. Sam's voice was iron. I don't give a damn what some doctor in Boston said about you. You do right by my ranch, I do right by you. That's the deal. Clara's hands were shaking again, but not from hunger this time. This was too good, too easy. There had to be a catch. "Why me?" she demanded. "You could hire any nurse, any doctor. Why offer this to a stranger you found crying in the street?" Something flickered in Sam's gray eyes, something old and wounded that he quickly buried. "Because I know what it's like to be blamed for something you didn't do," he said quietly. "I know what it's like to have everyone believe the worst about you, no matter how hard you try to prove them wrong." Clara stared at him. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Miss Whitmore, even if the rest of the world won't give them one." The words hung in the air between them. Clara thought about her options. She had $2, no place to stay, no prospects. The stagecoach didn't leave for another week, and even if she could afford a ticket, where would she go? Back to Boston, where her name was poison? Forward to another town, where the same telegram would eventually find her? She was out of roads to run down. But Sam McAllister wasn't offering her escape. He was offering her something she'd stopped believing existed. A chance. "I have conditions," Clara said. Sam's eyebrows rose. "Name them." "I want to see your medical supplies before I agree to anything. If you expect me to keep men alive, I need proper equipment. Bandages, antiseptic, surgical tools. I've got a supply room that needs organizing. Whatever else you need, we'll order from Denver." Clara nodded slowly. "And I want it understood that when it comes to medical decisions, my word is final. I won't be overruled by anyone. Not you, not your foreman, not anyone." A ghost of a smile crossed Sam's face. "That's what got you in trouble in Boston. That's what kept a patient alive for as long as he was." Clara lifted her chin. "If you want a nurse who'll do whatever she's told, hire someone else." "Miss Whitmore," Sam stood, picking up his hat. "That's exactly why I want to hire you." He extended his hand again. Clara looked at it. Same calloused palm, same steady offer. But this time, taking it meant more than getting out of the dirt. It meant trusting a stranger, betting everything she had left on a man she'd known for less than an hour. It meant hope. Clara reached out and shook his hand. "When do I start?" "Soon as you're ready. Wagon's outside Fuller's store. I was loading supplies when I saw you." Sam's grip was firm, but not crushing. "Unless you've got business to finish in town." Clara laughed, a real laugh this time, surprised out of her. "No, Mr. McAllister, I don't believe I have any business left in Clearwater." "Sam," he corrected. "Mr. McAllister was my father, and he was a considerably meaner man than me." They walked out of the restaurant together, Sam carrying her carpet bag despite her protests. The street that had seemed so hostile an hour ago looked different now. Smaller, less important. Horace Fuller was standing outside his mercantile, watching them with barely concealed suspicion. "McAllister," he called out, "that woman you're with." "Is my new ranch nurse," Sam said, not breaking stride. "And if I hear you've been spreading lies about her, Fuller, I'll take my business to Jensen's store in Miller Creek. All of it." Fuller's face went red. "Now see here." "Good day, Fuller." Sam tipped his hat and kept walking. Clara hurried to keep up with his long stride. "You didn't have to do that." "No, I didn't." Sam glanced down at her. "But I wanted to." They reached a sturdy wagon loaded with supplies. Bags of grain, wooden crates, coils of rope. 2 horses stood patiently in the traces, their coats gleaming in the afternoon sun. Sam stowed her carpetbag behind the seat and offered his hand to help her up. Clara climbed onto the wagon, arranging her skirts around her. The wooden seat was hard, but it was also the most comfortable she'd felt in weeks. Sam swung up beside her, gathering the reins with practiced ease. "The ride's about 3 hours," he said. "Road's rough in places. Might want to hold on." "I'm not delicate, Mr. McCall. Sam, I can handle a rough road." That ghost of a smile appeared again. "No, ma'am. I don't believe you're delicate at all." He clicked his tongue, and the horses moved forward. Clara watched Clearwater shrink behind them. The mercantile, the hotel, the restaurant. The street where she'd fallen to her knees in despair. She was leaving it all behind. And for the first time in 3 months, she didn't feel like she was running away from something. She felt like she was running toward it. They'd been traveling for nearly an hour when Clara finally worked up the courage to ask, "You said you know what it's like to be blamed for something you didn't do." Sam's hands tightened on the reins, just for a moment. Then they relaxed. "I did say that." "You don't have to tell me if—" "The war." Sam's voice was flat, distant. "I was 17 when I enlisted. Confederate Army, Tennessee Regiment. Fought for 4 years." Clara was quiet. The Civil War had ended almost 20 years ago, but its wounds were still fresh for many. "In '64, we were pinned down near Petersburg. Supplies running low. Men dying every day from wounds, disease, starvation." Sam's jaw clenched. "My best friend since childhood, Thomas Reed, he couldn't take it anymore. Said he was leaving, going home to his mother and sisters." "He deserted." "He tried to." Sam's voice cracked, just barely. "I was ordered to stop him. My commanding officer put a rifle in my hands and told me if I didn't shoot Thomas, he'd have us both executed for treason." Clara's heart stopped. "Sam?" "I did it." The words came out like shards of glass. "I shot my best friend in the back. Killed him. Because a man in a fancy uniform told me to." The wagon wheels creaked. The horses' hooves thudded against the packed earth. "That wasn't your fault," Clara said softly. "Wasn't it?" Sam laughed, bitter and broken. "I pulled the trigger. Nobody else. Me." "You were given an impossible choice. You were a child, following orders in a war you didn't start." Thomas's mother didn't see it that way. Neither did his sisters. Sam's knuckles were white on the reins. "They told everyone I murdered him. That I'd always been jealous of him, wanted him dead." "That's not true." "Truth doesn't matter, Miss Whitmore. You said so yourself." Sam finally looked at her, and the pain in his gray eyes was bottomless. When enough people believe a lie, it becomes the truth. And I've been living with that truth for 20 years. Clara understood now why he'd stopped to help her, why he'd offered her work when everyone else had turned her away. He wasn't just giving her a second chance. He was trying to earn one for himself. "I'm sorry," she said, "for what happened to you, for what you had to carry alone all these years." Sam was quiet for a long moment. "It's getting better," he finally said. "Building the ranch helped, having something to work toward, something that matters." "The men you hire, are they like you, carrying things?" "Some." Sam's expression softened, just slightly. "Ezra, my cook, he was born a slave, fought for his freedom, lost most of his family along the way. Josiah, my foreman, he's half Lakota. Doesn't belong anywhere, according to most folks." "You've built a home for people who don't have one." "I've built a ranch that needs good workers. Everything else is just life." But Clara could see the truth in his face. The Double M wasn't just a business to Sam McAllister. It was redemption. The sun was beginning its descent when the ranch finally came into view. Clara straightened on the wagon seat, her heart beating faster. The Double M spread across a wide valley, nestled between rolling hills dotted with horses. The main house was solid and well built, with a wide porch and windows that caught the golden light. A large barn stood nearby, along with several smaller buildings and a network of corrals where horses grazed peacefully. It was beautiful. "Welcome to the Double M," Sam said. Clara couldn't find words. After weeks of dingy boarding houses and cramped stagecoaches, this place looked like heaven. As they approached, a man emerged from the barn. Tall and lean, with copper skin and long dark hair pulled back from a face that revealed nothing. "That's Josiah Crane," Sam said quietly. "My foreman. He'll be cautious with you at first." Cautious? He doesn't trust easily. Had reason not to. Sam pulled the wagon to a stop. "Let me handle him." Josiah approached the wagon, his dark eyes flicking to Clara with unconcealed suspicion. "You're back early," he said to Sam. "Finished up quick." Sam jumped down from the wagon. "This is Clara Whitmore. She's our new nurse." Josiah's expression didn't change. "Nurse." "That's right. She'll be staying in the old cabin, working out of the supply room until we can set up something better." "We don't need a nurse." "We needed one when Pete lost 2 fingers last month. We needed one when Jake's arm got infected and he nearly died." Sam's voice was steady but firm. "We need one now." Josiah studied Clara for a long moment. She met his gaze without flinching. "Boston," he said finally. "You're from Boston." "I am." "Long way from home." "I don't have a home anymore, Mr. Crane." Clara lifted her chin. "That's why I'm here." Something flickered in Josiah's dark eyes. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "The men won't like it," he said to Sam. "A woman on the ranch. The men will treat her with respect, or they'll answer to me." Sam turned to help Clara down from the wagon. "Spread the word. Meeting after supper. I want everyone there." Josiah nodded once, still watching Clara with that unreadable expression. Then he turned and walked back toward the barn. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "That went well," she said dryly. Sam almost smiled. "That's Josiah being friendly. Give him time." He led her toward the main house, pointing out buildings as they went. "Barn's there, bunkhouse behind it. Cookhouse is the small building with the smoking chimney. That's Ezra's domain, and nobody enters without permission." As if summoned, an older black man appeared in the cookhouse doorway. His hair was completely white, his face lined with years, but his eyes were sharp and knowing. "Sam McAllister," he called out. "You bring me more mouths to feed without warning again. I swear I'll—" He stopped mid-sentence, noticing Clara. "Well now, who's this?" "Ezra Polk. Meet Clara Whitmore. She's our new nurse." Ezra's eyebrows rose. "Nurse? Lord have mercy. We got ourselves a proper medical woman?" "Trained at Massachusetts General," Clara confirmed. "Massachusetts?" Ezra whistled low. "That's fancy." "Fancy doesn't mean much out here," Clara said. "But I know how to stitch wounds and set bones and keep men from dying of infection. Is that useful enough?" Ezra stared at her for a moment. Then he burst out laughing, a deep, rolling sound that seemed to echo across the valley. "Oh, I like her," he said to Sam. "I like her a lot." He turned back to Clara with a warm smile. "Welcome to the Double M, Miss Clara. Supper's at 6. Don't be late. I don't save plates for stragglers." He disappeared back into the cookhouse, still chuckling. Clara felt something loosen in her chest. 2 encounters with Sam's people, and one of them had actually smiled at her. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. The cabin was small, just as Sam had warned. 1 room with a narrow bed, a cast-iron stove, a wooden table, and 2 chairs. But it was clean, private, hers. Clara set her carpetbag on the bed and looked around. A window faced west, toward the hills where the sun was now setting in streaks of gold and crimson. A handmade quilt covered the bed, faded but carefully mended. Someone had placed a small vase of wildflowers on the table. The previous owner's mother lived here, Sam said from the doorway. Passed about 5 years back. I've kept it up in case... well, in case. In case what? Sam shrugged. In case someone needed it. Clara turned to face him. Why do you keep doing that? Doing what? Being kind. You barely know me. Sam was quiet for a moment. The fading light softened the hard lines of his face, making him look younger, more vulnerable. Because someone should, he said finally. And because I know what it feels like when no one does. Their eyes met. Clara felt something shift in her chest. Something she'd thought dead since leaving Boston. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Sam nodded. Rest up. Supper's in an hour, and you're going to meet the rest of the crew. A hint of worry crossed his face. Some of them might take convincing. I'm not afraid of convincing. No. That almost smile returned. No, I don't suppose you are. He touched the brim of his hat and turned to leave. Sam? He stopped. Clara hesitated. That thing you carry. About Thomas. About the war. Sam's shoulders tensed. You're not the man who pulled that trigger anymore. The boy who did that? He was scared and trapped and following orders he never should have been given. Clara's voice was soft but firm. The man who built this ranch, who takes in strays and gives second chances, he's someone else entirely. Sam didn't turn around, but she heard him take a shaky breath. Supper at 6, he said, his voice rough. Don't be late. Then he was gone, his footsteps fading across the yard. Clara stood alone in her cabin, watching the last light fade from the window. She'd come west, looking for escape. Instead, she'd found something far more dangerous. Hope. The bunkhouse fell silent the moment Clara walked through the door. 8 men stared at her, some with curiosity, some with suspicion. One, a young man barely past boyhood, with something that looked almost like fear. Sam stepped in behind her. Evening, boys. Boss, a grizzled man with a tobacco-stained beard, spoke first. You want to explain what's going on? Happy to, Pete. This is Clara Whitmore. She's a trained nurse from Boston, and she's joining us at the Double M. A woman? Another man laughed. On the ranch? That's right. Sam's voice carried an edge that silenced the laughter instantly. She'll be handling medical matters from now on. Any injuries, illnesses, anything that used to mean a 2-day ride to that drunk excuse for a doctor in Miller Creek. Miss Whitmore takes care of it. We don't need no woman telling us. You got something to say, Hank? Sam cut him off. Because I seem to recall you crying like a baby when that horse kicked your ribs last spring. Took you 3 weeks to heal proper because nobody knew how to wrap them right. Hank's face reddened. That ain't... And Pete, Sam turned to the bearded man. How many fingers you got now? 8? Would have been 10 if someone had known how to save those 2 you lost. Pete looked down at his maimed hand, said nothing. Miss Whitmore trained at one of the best hospitals in the country, Sam continued. She knows more about keeping men alive than anyone in 3 territories. You don't have to like her being here, but you will respect her. Understood? Silence. I said, understood. Yes, boss. The response came in a reluctant chorus. Clara stepped forward. She'd faced worse than skeptical cowboys. Much worse. I'm not here to tell you how to do your jobs, she said, her voice steady. I'm here to patch you up when those jobs try to kill you. You get hurt, you come to me. You feel sick, you come to me. Otherwise, pretend I don't exist. The young man in the corner, barely 17, with sandy hair and nervous eyes, raised his hand like a schoolboy. "Ma'am, what if we don't want to pretend you don't exist?" Someone snickered. The boy's cheeks flushed crimson. "Then you can be civil," Clara said, fighting a smile. "What's your name?" "Tommy, ma'am. Tommy Reed." Clara's heart stuttered. Tommy Reed. The same name as Sam's friend. The one he'd been forced to kill. She glanced at Sam. His face had gone carefully blank, but she caught the tightening around his eyes. "Well, Tommy," Clara managed, "I appreciate the welcome, even if it's the only one I get tonight." Ezra appeared in the doorway, wooden spoon in hand. "Supper's ready, and I ain't keeping it warm for stragglers. Move it, all of you." The tension broke as the men filed out, still casting wary glances at Clara. Tommy lingered, watching her with those nervous, curious eyes. "Ma'am, is it true you're from Boston?" "It is. I always wanted to see a big city." His voice was wistful. "Never been anywhere but Wyoming and a little bit of Nebraska." "Cities aren't as wonderful as people think," Clara said gently. "Too many people, too much noise, not enough sky." Tommy grinned. "You sound like you're starting to think like us already." "Tommy!" Ezra's voice boomed from outside. "Food's getting cold!" The boy scurried off, and Clara found herself alone with Sam. "Tommy Reed," she said quietly. "I know." Sam's voice was rough. "Is that why?" "He showed up 3 years ago. Orphan. Starving. Couldn't turn him away." Sam's jaw worked. The name's just a coincidence. But Clara heard what he didn't say. That every time he looked at that boy, he saw a ghost. "Come on," Sam said, turning toward the door. "Ezra really doesn't save plates." They walked to the main house together, and Clara pretended not to notice the way Sam's hands trembled at his sides. Supper was louder than Clara expected. The men might not trust her yet, but they weren't shy about eating. Platters of roast beef, bowls of potatoes, baskets of bread. Everything disappeared at an alarming rate. Clara ate quietly, listening to their conversations, learning their names and their dynamics. Pete was the oldest, the unofficial spokesman for the group. Hank was the loudest, always ready with a complaint or a crude joke. A quiet man named Luis rarely spoke, but seemed to observe everything. And Tommy, young Tommy, sat at the far end of the table, watching Clara with undisguised fascination. Josiah sat at Sam's left hand, saying nothing, but his dark eyes tracked Clara's every movement. "So," Pete leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Boston, huh? What brings a city girl all the way out to Wyoming?" "Work," Clara said simply. "Work." Hank snorted. "Plenty of hospitals back east. Why come here?" Clara set down her fork. "Because no hospital back east would hire me." The table went quiet. "And before you hear it from someone else," Clara continued, "I'll tell you myself. I was accused of killing a patient, a wealthy man named Harrison Cole. A doctor made a mistake, and I was blamed for it." "You kill him?" Pete asked bluntly. "No." "Then why'd they say you did?" "Because the doctor who actually killed him is powerful and well-connected, and I'm neither." The men exchanged glances. "Sounds like something that'd happen," Louis said quietly. First words Clara had heard from him all night. "Ain't right," Tommy added. "Blaming someone for something they didn't do." "Lot of things ain't right, boy," Josiah said, his voice cold. "Doesn't mean this woman's telling the truth." Clara met his gaze. "You're right, it doesn't. You'll just have to watch me and decide for yourself." Josiah's eyes narrowed. "I intend to." "Good." Clara picked up her fork again. "I'd expect nothing less." Something flickered across Josiah's face. Surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. The meal continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. The men were still wary, but the open hostility had dimmed. Clara had given them honesty, And in a world full of liars, that counted for something. After supper, Sam walked her back to her cabin. "That took guts," he said, "telling them the truth like that." "They would have found out eventually. Better to control the story than let rumors do it for me." "Still, most people would have lied." "Most people haven't learned what I've learned." Clara stopped at her cabin door. "Lies have a way of growing. The truth, at least, stays the same size." Sam was quiet for a moment. "Josiah will come around. He just needs time. And if he doesn't, then I'll handle it. But I don't think it'll come to that. He's a good judge of character. Just careful about showing it." Clara nodded. "Good night, Sam." "Good night, Clara." She watched him walk away, his tall figure disappearing into the darkness. Then she went inside, closed the door, and allowed herself, just for a moment, to hope that she'd finally found a place where she could stop running. The first week at the Double M passed in a blur of work and watchfulness. Clara organized the medical supplies, pitifully inadequate, but better than nothing. She cleaned and inventoried every bandage, every bottle of antiseptic, every rusted surgical tool. She made lists of what she needed and presented them to Sam, who approved every item without question. "Whatever you need," he said. "Order it from Denver. This will cost a significant amount. Men's lives cost more." She couldn't argue with that. The ranch hands kept their distance at first, circling her like wary animals. But Clara didn't push. She went about her work quietly, efficiently, letting her actions speak louder than any words could. It was Tommy who broke the ice. He appeared at her cabin door on the fourth day, clutching his left hand to his chest. "Ma'am, I got a splinter. It ain't nothing serious, but it's deep and I can't get it out." Clara examined his hand. The splinter was more than just deep. It was nearly 2 inches of wood embedded in the flesh between his thumb and forefinger. "How long ago did this happen?" "Yesterday." "Yesterday?" Clara's voice sharpened. "Tommy, this is already starting to get infected. Why didn't you come to me immediately?" The boy's cheeks reddened. "The others said I shouldn't bother you with something small." "The others are idiots." Clara pulled him inside. "Sit down. This is going to hurt." She worked quickly, cleaning the wound, extracting the splinter with steady hands despite Tommy's hissing breaths. When she finally applied antiseptic and wrapped his hand in clean bandages, the boy's face was pale, but relieved. "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't thank me. Just come to me faster next time." Clara fixed him with a stern look. "Any injury, no matter how small, can turn deadly if it gets infected. I've seen men lose arms over splinters. I've seen men die from cuts that should have healed in a week." Tommy's eyes widened. "Die? From a cut?" "Infection doesn't care how tough you are, Tommy. It doesn't care how young or how strong. It just eats and eats until there's nothing left." Clara softened her voice. "Promise me you'll come to me immediately if anything happens. Anything at all." "I promise, ma'am." "Good." She patted his shoulder. "Now go show the others that I didn't bite your hand off." Tommy laughed, a genuine, surprised sound, and hurried out. That evening, 2 more men came to Clara with minor ailments they'd been ignoring. A twisted ankle that hadn't healed right. A persistent cough that turned out to be the beginning of bronchitis. Clara treated them both, sent them away with instructions, and allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. She was making progress. Josiah remained her only true adversary. The foreman watched her constantly, his dark eyes tracking her movements around the ranch. He never spoke to her directly unless absolutely necessary. And when he did, his tone was clipped, cold, professional. Clara didn't let it bother her. She'd faced worse prejudice in Boston. But on the 8th day, everything changed. It started with a scream. Clara was in her cabin, updating her medical inventory, when the sound split the air. High, terrified, young. She was running before she could think. The corral. Men were gathered around the fence, shouting. And in the center of the churned-up dirt, Tommy. He lay crumpled on the ground, a massive stallion rearing above him, hooves flashing. "Get him out!" someone yelled. "Someone get him out!" But the horse was crazed, eyes rolling white, and anyone who approached risked being trampled. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a rope from the nearest post and ducked through the fence rails. The stallion screamed and turned toward her, but she was already moving, keeping low, keeping steady. "Easy," she called out, her voice firm but calm. "Easy, boy. It's all right." The horse's ears flicked toward her. His hooves stamped the ground, inches from Tommy's motionless body. "That's it." Clara edged closer, rope ready. "That's it. Nobody's going to hurt you." "What the hell is she doing?" Hank's voice carried across the corral. "Shut up!" Sam's command was sharp. "Everyone shut up!" Clara reached Tommy's side. The boy was conscious, but barely, his face twisted with pain. His leg was bent at an angle that made Clara's stomach turn. "Tommy," she kept her voice low, soothing, "I'm going to get you out of here. Stay very still." "My leg," he whimpered. "Ma'am, my leg." "I know, sweetheart, I know. Just stay still." The stallion snorted, pawing the ground. Clara rose slowly, placing herself between the horse and the injured boy. "Someone's going to need to distract him," she called out. "Slowly, on the far side of the corral." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Josiah ducked through the fence. He moved like water, silent and deliberate, circling around to the stallion's blind side. The horse's attention shifted, head turning toward this new presence. "Now," Josiah said quietly. Clara grabbed Tommy under the arms and pulled. The boy screamed as his broken leg dragged across the ground, but Clara didn't stop. She hauled him backward, inch by inch, until hands reached through the fence and pulled them both to safety. The moment they cleared the rails, Clara was on her knees beside Tommy. "I need a flat board, at least 3 feet long. Clean cloth for bandages. And someone boil water, now!" The men scrambled to obey. Clara examined the leg. The break was bad, compound fracture, bone visible through torn skin. Tommy was going into shock, his face gray, his breathing shallow. "Stay with me, Tommy." Clara pressed her hands to his cheeks. "Look at me. Stay with me." "It hurts," he gasped. "It hurts so bad." "I know it does, but you're going to be fine. I promise you're going to be fine." She didn't know if that was true. Compound fractures killed men twice Tommy's age. Infection could set in within hours, and without proper surgical tools, without a real operating room. No, she wouldn't think about that now. "Where's that board?" she demanded. Josiah appeared at her side, plank in hand. His dark eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was no hostility in them. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "Hold him down. When I set this bone, he's going to scream." Josiah nodded and positioned himself at Tommy's shoulders. Clara took a deep breath. She'd done this before, in the hospital, under supervision, with proper equipment and trained assistants. None of that mattered now. Tommy was dying, and she was all he had. "On 3, she said. 1, 2. She pulled on 2. Tommy screamed. The bone shifted under Clara's hands, sliding back into place with a sickening crunch. Tommy's scream cut off abruptly as he lost consciousness. A mercy, really. Clara worked fast. cleaning the wound, applying antiseptic, splinting the leg with the board and strips of cloth. By the time she finished, her dress was soaked with blood and sweat, and her hands were shaking. But Tommy was alive. "Get him to my cabin," Clara ordered. "Carefully. Don't jostle that leg." Luis and Pete lifted the unconscious boy and carried him away. The other men parted to let them pass, their faces pale with shock. Clara tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Strong hands caught her. "Easy." Sam's voice was in her ear. "I've got you." "I'm fine. You just saved Tommy's life." Sam's arms tightened around her. "You're allowed to be shaky for a minute." Clara leaned against him, just for a moment. Just long enough to catch her breath. Then she pulled away. "I need to watch him through the night. That wound could still get infected. And if the bone doesn't heal properly..." "Whatever you need." Sam's gray eyes were soft with something she couldn't name. "Whatever you need, Clara." She nodded and walked toward her cabin on unsteady legs. Behind her, she heard Josiah's voice. "Boss, I was wrong about her." "I know," Sam replied quietly. "I know." Clara sat beside Tommy's bed for 3 days. She changed his bandages every few hours, watching for the telltale redness that would signal infection. She forced water and broth down his throat when he was conscious, held his hand when fever dreams made him cry out for his mother. The ranch hands took turns keeping vigil outside her cabin. They brought her food she barely touched, and coffee she drained by the pot. Ezra made soups specifically for healing, old recipes from his grandmother, he said, from before the war. On the second night, Josiah appeared in her doorway. "How is he?" Clara didn't look up from Tommy's pale face. "Fighting. The wound isn't infected yet, but we're not out of danger." Josiah was silent for a long moment. "I misjudged you," he said finally. "You were protecting your people. I understand that." "No." Josiah stepped inside, his tall frame filling the small space. "I looked at you and saw an outsider, a white woman from a big city who didn't belong here. I didn't see you." Clara finally met his eyes. "What do you see now?" "Someone who risked her life for a boy she barely knows. Someone who hasn't slept in 2 days because she refuses to let him die." Josiah's voice softened. "Someone like me." Clara felt tears prick her eyes, but blinked them back. "Thank you, Josiah." He nodded once. "You need rest. I'll watch him for a few hours." "I can't." "You can't help him if you collapse." Josiah pulled up a chair beside the bed. "I know how to wake you if something changes. Sleep." Clara wanted to argue, but exhaustion was dragging at her bones, and she knew he was right. 2 hours, she said. "No more." 2 hours, Josiah agreed. Clara curled up on the floor in the corner, using her folded apron as a pillow. She was asleep within seconds. She dreamed of Boston, of white hospital walls, and Dr. Shaw's smug smile, and Harrison Cole's lifeless eyes staring up at her in accusation. She woke to Josiah's hand on her shoulder. "He's awake. He's asking for you." Clara scrambled to Tommy's bedside. The boy's eyes were clear for the first time in days, his forehead cool under her hand. "Ma'am?" His voice was weak but lucid. "Did I die?" Clara laughed, a wet, relieved sound. "No, Tommy, you did not die." "Feels like I should have." He winced as he tried to shift. "My leg?" "Broken, badly. But I said it, and if you follow my instructions exactly, you'll walk again, maybe even ride." Tommy's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really. But it's going to take time, and you're going to have to be patient." "I can be patient." He paused. "Ma'am, the others said you went into the corral with Diablo. They said you put yourself between me and a crazy horse." Clara smoothed the hair back from his forehead. "Someone had to." "Why?" "Because you needed help, and I was there." Tommy's eyes filled with tears he was too proud to shed. "Nobody's ever... I mean, since my folks died, nobody's ever..." "You have people now, Tommy." Clara squeezed his hand. "You have all of us." The boy turned his face away, but not before Clara saw the tears finally fall. She pretended not to notice. Word of Clara's heroics spread through the territory faster than wildfire. Within a week, neighbors she'd never met were riding to the Double M to meet the lady nurse who'd saved young Tommy Reed. Clara treated their minor ailments with the same care she gave the ranch hands, and slowly, grudgingly, the territory began to accept her. But not everyone was pleased. It was a Thursday afternoon, nearly 3 weeks after Tommy's accident, when the stranger rode in. Clara was in the supply room, organizing the medical equipment that had finally arrived from Denver. She heard the hoofbeats first, too fast for a casual visitor. Then Sam's voice, sharp with warning. "Shaw, what the hell are you doing on my land?" Clara's blood turned to ice. Shaw. She moved to the window, her heart hammering. The man on horseback was handsome in a cold, polished way. Dark hair slicked back, expensive suit, boots that had never seen real work. He sat his horse with the arrogance of someone who had never been told no. "Just being neighborly, McAllister." His voice carried across the yard, smooth, cultured, and somehow threatening. "Heard you've had some excitement lately. A woman on the ranch? A nurse, they say?" "My hiring decisions aren't your concern." "No?" Shaw's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's interesting, because I received a very interesting telegram from a colleague in Boston. A Dr. Edmund Shaw. No relation, sadly, but we share a name and a profession." Clara's legs went weak. No. He was most concerned to hear that Clara Whitmore had surfaced in Wyoming, Shaw continued. Said she was dangerous, negligent, that she killed a man and fled justice. "She didn't kill anyone." Sam's voice was hard as stone. "According to Dr. Shaw, she did. And according to Massachusetts law, she should be arrested and returned to stand trial." Clara couldn't breathe. The room spun around her. "There's no warrant," Sam said. "No legal standing. You've got nothing but gossip and lies." "For now." Shaw's smile widened. "But I'm a patient man, McAllister, and I have friends in high places. If this woman is truly innocent, she has nothing to fear. But if she's not..." He let the threat hang in the air. "Get off my land, Shaw." "Gladly. I just wanted to introduce myself." Shaw's eyes swept the ranch, lingering on the window where Clara stood frozen. "We'll be seeing each other again, I'm sure." He turned his horse and rode away at a leisurely pace. Clara sank to the floor, her back against the wall, her whole body shaking. He'd found her. After everything, the running, the hiding, the desperate hope that she'd finally escaped, he'd found her. Not Dr. Edmund Shaw, but someone connected to him. Someone who would destroy everything she'd built here. She was still sitting there when Sam found her 20 minutes later. "Clara." He knelt beside her, his weathered face creased with concern. "Clara, look at me." She couldn't. If she looked at him, she'd fall apart completely. "That man," she managed. "Who is he?" "Garrett Shaw. Owns the biggest ranch in the territory. Has been trying to buy me out for years." Sam's jaw tightened. "He's a snake, Clara. Whatever he said, whatever he threatened." "He knows." Clara's voice cracked. "He knows about Boston. He's going to use it to destroy me." I won't let him."
"You can't stop him."
The words tore out of her.
"He has money, connections, power, and I have nothing. Nothing but a ruined reputation and a man's word against mine."
Sam took her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Listen to me," he said, his voice low and fierce. "You are not nothing. You saved Tommy's life. You've earned the respect of every man on this ranch. You've built something real here."
"It doesn't matter. None of it matters if—"
"It matters to me." Sam's thumbs brushed the tears from her cheeks. "You matter to me, Clara. And I will be damned if I let Garrett Shaw or anyone else take you away." Clara stared at him, at the conviction in his gray eyes, at the strength in his hands.
"Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?"
Sam was quiet for a long moment. "Because you're the first person in 20 years who's made me want to fight for something again," he said finally. "Because when I look at you, I don't see my past. I see my future." Clara's heart stopped. Then it started again, faster than before.
"Sam."
"You don't have to say anything." He released her face and stood. "Just know that whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone. Not anymore." He offered her his hand. Clara looked at it, calloused, strong, steady. The hand that had pulled her out of the dirt in Clearwater. The hand that had offered her a chance when no one else would. She took it. And as Sam pulled her to her feet, Clara made a decision. She was done running. Whatever Garrett Shaw brought against her, she would face it. Here, on this ranch, with these people who had become her family. No more hiding, no more fear. This was her home now, and she would fight to keep it. 3 days passed without incident. Clara tried to convince herself that Garrett Shaw's visit had been nothing more than intimidation, empty threats from a man who enjoyed watching others squirm. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of danger circling closer with each passing hour. Sam doubled the night patrols. Josiah kept a rifle within arm's reach at all times. Even Ezra started sleeping with a shotgun beside his bed. The ranch was holding its breath. "You can't live like this forever," Clara told Sam on the 4th morning. They were in his office, going over supply orders, but neither of them could focus. "I can live however I need to until Shaw backs off." "And if he doesn't?" Sam's jaw tightened. "Then we deal with it." "How? He has money, influence. Half the territory probably owes him favors." "And I have something he doesn't." Sam met her eyes. "People who would die for this ranch. People who believe in what we're building here." Clara wanted to believe him. But she'd seen what men like Garrett Shaw could do. How they could twist truth into lies and crush anyone who stood in their way. "Sam, maybe I should leave. If I'm gone, he has no reason to." "No." The word hit like a slap. "Clara, listen to me." Sam stood and crossed to where she sat. "Running didn't help you before. It won't help you now. Shaw isn't after you because of what happened in Boston. He's after me, after this land. You're just the weapon he thinks he can use." "Then why give him a weapon at all?" "Because losing you would hurt me more than anything Shaw could do." Sam's voice dropped low. "Don't you understand that yet?" Clara's heart stuttered. "Sam." A gunshot cracked through the morning air. They both froze. Then another shot. And another. Sam grabbed the rifle from beside his desk. "Stay here." "The hell I will." She followed him out the door. The yard was chaos. Men were running toward the north pasture, shouting. Smoke rose in a thick black column against the summer sky, and cutting through everything, the screaming of horses. "The stable!" Josiah sprinted past them. "Someone set fire to the stable!" Clara's blood went cold.
20 horses. 20 animals trapped in a burning building. Sam was already running. Clara hiked up her skirts and ran after him. The heat hit her before she reached the stable doors. Flames licked up the wooden walls, consuming everything in their path. Inside, horses shrieked and kicked at their stalls, desperate to escape. "Get the doors open!" Sam shouted. "All of them!" Pete and Lewis hauled the main doors wide, while Hank and 2 others attacked the side entrance. Smoke poured out, thick and choking. "The horses won't come!" Pete yelled. "They're too scared!" Clara didn't think. She grabbed a blanket from the water trough, soaked it, and wrapped it around her head. "Clara, don't!" Sam reached for her, but she was already plunging into the smoke. Inside was hell. Heat seared her lungs, smoke blinded her. But she could hear the horses, screaming, panicking, dying. She found the first stall by touch, a mare, wild with terror. Clara grabbed her halter and pulled, but the animal wouldn't budge. "Come on," Clara gasped. "Come on, girl. We have to go." She remembered something Josiah had taught Tommy. Horses trusted calm. Even in chaos, if you were calm, they would follow. Clara forced her racing heart to slow, forced her voice to steady. "Easy," she murmured. "Easy now. I've got you. We're going to walk out together, nice and slow." The mare's ears flicked toward her voice. "That's it. Good girl. Come on." Step by step, Clara led the terrified horse toward the light of the open doors. The moment they cleared the building, the mare bolted, nearly knocking Clara off her feet. She didn't stop to recover. She turned and went back in. Horse after horse, stall after stall. Clara lost count of how many she pulled from the flames. Her lungs burned. Her eyes streamed. The wet blanket dried and started to smolder against her skin. She was reaching for another halter when a beam crashed down 3 feet in front of her. Clara screamed and stumbled backward. The fire had spread to the rafters. The whole structure was groaning, ready to collapse. "Clara!" Sam's voice cut through the roar of flames. "Clara, get out! There's one more!" She could see him, a young stallion, trapped in the last stall, too terrified to move. "I can't leave him! The roof's coming down! Then help me!" Sam appeared through the smoke, his face blackened, his shirt singed. He didn't waste words. He grabbed the stallion's halter on one side, while Clara took the other. Together, they pulled. The horse fought them, reared, kicked, but Sam held on with impossible strength, and Clara refused to let go. "Move!" Sam roared. They hauled the stallion forward, just as another beam crashed behind them. Sparks showered down. Clara felt fire kiss the back of her neck. Then they were out in the cool morning air, the stallion breaking free and galloping toward the hills. Clara collapsed to her knees, coughing so hard she thought her ribs might crack. "Clara," Sam was beside her instantly, pulling her into his arms. "Clara, look at me. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." The words came out as a rasp. "The horses." All out, every single one. Sam's hands moved over her face, her neck, her shoulders, checking for injuries. "You saved them. You crazy, stubborn, beautiful woman. You saved them all." Clara started laughing, or crying. She couldn't tell which. Sam pulled her against his chest and held her there, while the stable burned to the ground behind them. The fire wasn't an accident. Josiah found the evidence before the embers had cooled. Oil-soaked rags, a broken lantern, hoofprints leading away to the east, toward Shaw's land. "Son of a bitch," Pete snarled when Josiah reported his findings. "That snake tried to burn us out." "Can't prove it was him," Louise said quietly. "Who else would it be?" Hank demanded. "Shaw's been trying to run Sam off this land for years. Now he's got an excuse, a dangerous woman on the ranch. Probably thinks if he makes enough trouble, the territory will force Sam to get rid of her." Clara stood apart from the group.
her burned hands wrapped in bandages she'd applied herself. Every breath still hurt. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the guilt crushing her chest. This was her fault. Shaw had attacked the ranch because of her. Innocent animals could have died because of her. Next time, it might be the men, or the main house, or... Stop! Sam's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. She looked up to find him watching her with those steady gray eyes. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "And you're wrong." "Am I? Shaw came here because of me. He set this fire because of me. If you hadn't what? Existed? Had the bad luck to work for a doctor who was a coward and a liar?" Sam moved closer. "Clara, Shaw would have found another excuse. He always does. This isn't about you. It's about greed and power, and a man who can't stand that someone told him no." "You don't know that." "I know Shaw." Sam's voice hardened. "I know he's been after this land since before I built the first fence post. I know he tried to buy me out, then tried to undercut my cattle prices, then tried to poach my workers. None of it worked. So now he's getting desperate." Clara shook her head. "He has evidence against me, witnesses, a dead man's family who wants someone to blame. If he brings charges, then we fight them. Together." "Sam, you could lose everything." "I already lost everything once." Sam's eyes burned into hers. "My family, my home, my best friend. I spent 20 years thinking I didn't deserve to rebuild. Then you walked into my life, and suddenly I wanted to fight again. I'm not giving that up. Not for Shaw, not for anyone." Clara's eyes filled with tears she was too tired to hide. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you have so much faith in me?" Sam reached out and cupped her face in his calloused hands. "Because I see you, Clara Whitmore. The real you. Not the woman Boston tried to destroy, but the one who walked into a burning building to save horses she'd never even ridden. The one who sat with a dying boy for 3 days because she refused to let him go. The one who makes me believe..." His voice cracked. "The one who makes me believe I'm worth something after all." A tear slipped down Clara's cheek. "Sam, I love you." The words came out raw and rough. "I've loved you since you looked me in the eye in that restaurant and told me the truth about your past without flinching. I love your strength and your stubbornness and your ridiculous courage. And I will spend the rest of my life proving that you're worth fighting for, if you'll let me." Clara couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She answered him the only way she could. She kissed him. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and fierce, and full of every emotion she'd been fighting since the day she arrived. Sam pulled her against him like she was the only solid thing in a world gone mad, and Clara held on with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sam rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said. "Whatever comes, stay and fight beside me." "Yes," Clara whispered. "Yes." For one perfect moment, the world was simple. Then Josiah's voice shattered the silence. "Riders coming! A lot of them!" Clara and Sam turned to see a cloud of dust approaching from the east. 10 riders, maybe more, moving fast. At their head rode Garrett Shaw. "Get inside," Sam ordered Clara. "No!" "Clara, I'm done hiding." She straightened her spine despite her aching body. "Whatever he's brought, I face it with you." Sam looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded and turned to his men. "Josiah, Pete, Hank, Luis, with me. The rest of you, get the women and children to safety."
We ain't got women and children, Hank pointed out. Then guard the cookhouse. Ezra will kill me if anything happens to his stove. Despite everything, a few of the men managed weak laughs. They gathered in the yard as Shaw's party approached. Clara counted 12 riders, all armed, all wearing the hard expressions of men being paid for trouble. Shaw stopped his horse 20 feet from where Sam stood. "McAllister." His smile was cold as a winter grave. "Looks like you've had some excitement. You should know you caused it." "Careful with accusations like that." Shaw's eyes slid to Clara, and his smile widened. "Ah, the famous Miss Whitmore. I've heard so much about you." "I'm sure you have." Clara kept her voice steady. "Most of it lies." "Is it?" Shaw reached into his saddlebag and produced a sheaf of papers. "I have here a sworn statement from Dr. Edmund Shaw of Massachusetts General Hospital. It details how you, through gross negligence, administered a fatal dose of medication to one Harrison Cole, resulting in his death. I also have affidavits from 3 hospital administrators corroborating the doctor's account." Clara's stomach turned to ice. "And I have this," Shaw held up a telegram. "A warrant for your arrest, issued by a judge in Boston. It seems Mr. Cole's family finally has enough evidence to bring you to trial for manslaughter." "That warrant has no jurisdiction here," Sam said. "Perhaps not. But I've taken the liberty of presenting these documents to Judge Morrison in Clearwater. He's agreed that Miss Whitmore should be detained until the matter can be properly investigated." Shaw's smile turned predatory. "I've brought men to escort her to town. Peacefully, I hope." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. A warrant. A judge. Legal authority. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. Shaw had built a trap, and she'd walked right into it. "You're not taking her anywhere." Sam's hand moved to the gun at his hip. "Sam, don't!" Clara grabbed his arm. "If you resist, he'll have grounds to arrest you too. Then who protects the ranch? Who protects the men?" "I don't care about I do." Clara forced herself to meet his eyes. "I care. Let me go. Fight this the right way, with lawyers and evidence and the truth. Don't give him an excuse to destroy everything you've built." "Clara, no." "Please." Her voice broke. "Please, Sam, trust me. I survived Boston. I can survive this." Shaw cleared his throat. "How touching, but I'm afraid we don't have all day. Miss Whitmore, will you come quietly, or do my men need to assist you?" Clara looked at the hired guns, at Shaw's smug expression, at Sam's anguished face. She stepped forward. "Clara!" Tommy's voice rang out across the yard. The boy had hobbled out of his cabin on a makeshift crutch, his face twisted with fear. "You can't let them take her! She saved my life!" "Get back inside, boy," Shaw snapped. "The hell I will!" Tommy planted himself in front of Clara. "Miss Clara's no murderer. She's the kindest, bravest woman I ever met. If you take her, you'll have to go through me." "And me." Josiah stepped forward, rifle in hand. "Me too." Pete joined him. Then Hank. Then Luis. One by one, every man on the ranch moved to stand between Clara and Shaw's riders. Shaw's smile faltered. "This is obstruction of justice," he hissed. "Morrison will hear of this." "Let him hear." Sam's voice was steel. "Let him hear how a hired mob came to arrest an innocent woman on the word of a man who's been trying to steal my land for a decade. Let him hear how every hand on this ranch was willing to stand against you. You're making a mistake, McAllister." "No," Sam drew his gun. "You made the mistake, coming onto my land, threatening my people. You want Clara Whitmore? You go back to your tame judge and you get a real lawman with a real badge to serve that warrant. Until then, get the hell off my property."
Shaw's face contorted with rage. For a terrible moment, Clara thought he would order his men to attack. Then, one of his riders leaned over and muttered something in his ear. Shaw's jaw worked. His hands tightened on his reins. "This isn't over," he said finally. "No," Sam agreed. "But you're still leaving." Shaw wheeled his horse and galloped away, his men following in a cloud of dust. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding.
"Thank you," she managed, looking at the men who had risked everything to protect her. "All of you."
"Ain't nothing, ma'am," Pete said gruffly. "You're one of us now." Tommy grinned, despite his pale face. "Besides, who else is going to yell at me about changing my bandages?" Clara laughed, and it turned into a sob. Sam pulled her into his arms and held her while she fell apart. That night, after the men had eaten and the yard had finally gone quiet, Clara sat on the porch of the main house, staring at the stars. Sam lowered himself beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "He'll be back," Clara said. "I know." "With real deputies next time. Maybe soldiers." "Probably." Clara turned to face him. "I can't ask you to fight a war for me, Sam." "You're not asking. I'm volunteering." "Why?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. "When I was 19 years old, I watched my best friend die because I didn't have the courage to say no. I've spent 20 years carrying that guilt, telling myself I was a coward who didn't deserve happiness." He reached out and took her hand. "Then you came along, and I realized something." "What?" "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. You did that when you refused to give that patient the wrong medicine. You did it when you walked into a burning stable. You do it every single day." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not the man who killed Thomas Reed anymore," Sam continued. "I haven't been for a long time. But I couldn't see it until I saw it reflected in you. You made me want to be better, Clara. You made me believe I could be." "Sam." "So no, you can't ask me to stop fighting. Because fighting for you is the first thing I've done in 20 years that feels right." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "What are we going to do?" "Tomorrow, I'm riding to Clearwater. I'm going to find out exactly what Shaw told Judge Morrison. I'm going to hire the best lawyer in the territory, and I'm going to prove that every word Dr. Edmund Shaw wrote about you is a lie." "How? He has documents, witnesses, evidence." "Evidence can be fabricated. Witnesses can be bought." Sam's voice hardened. "But the truth has a way of coming out, Clara. Eventually. It always does." Clara wanted to believe him, but she'd seen truth crushed under the weight of power before. She'd watched her whole life destroyed by a man who had the influence to make lies into fact. What if Sam was wrong? What if the truth wasn't enough? A sound from the darkness made them both freeze. Hoofbeats, coming fast. Sam was on his feet instantly, gun drawn. But the rider who emerged from the shadows wasn't one of Shaw's men. It was a woman. She slid from her horse and stumbled toward them, her face pale in the moonlight. "Mr. McAllister?" Her voice shook. "Mr. Samuel McAllister?" "That's me. Who are you?" "My name is Margaret Cole." The woman's eyes found Clara's, and they were filled with tears. "Harrison Cole's sister. And I know the truth about what really happened to my brother." Clara's legs nearly gave out. Harrison Cole's sister? Standing right here, in the middle of Wyoming, thousands of miles from Boston. "How did you find me?" Clara's voice came out as a whisper. "I've been looking for 3 months." Margaret Cole stepped closer, her face drawn with exhaustion. I went to Philadelphia first, then St. Louis, then Denver. Finally, someone in Clearwater told me about a nurse who'd come to work at the McAllister Ranch. Why? Clara demanded. Your family blamed me for Harrison's death. You testified against me at the inquiry. Margaret flinched. I know, and I will carry that guilt to my grave. Her voice cracked. But I didn't know the truth then, Miss Whitmore. I only knew what Dr. Shaw told us.
Sam moved to Clara's side, his hand resting protectively on her back. You better come inside, Miss Cole. Sounds like you've got a story to tell. They gathered in Sam's office, Clara, Sam, and Margaret Cole, with Josiah standing guard at the door. Ezra brought coffee that nobody touched. Margaret sat in the chair across from Sam's desk, her hands trembling in her lap. Start from the beginning, Sam said. Margaret took a shaky breath. 3 weeks ago, I found a letter in my brother's effects. We'd finally cleared out his apartments. My mother couldn't bear to do it until now. She reached into her bag and produced a worn envelope. Harrison wrote it the night before he died. He knew something was wrong. He knew the treatment wasn't working. Clara's heart hammered. What did it say? Read it yourself. Margaret held out the letter. Clara's hands shook as she unfolded the yellowed paper. My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. I want you to know the truth, in case Dr. Shaw tries to obscure it. There is a nurse here, Clara Whitmore, who has been fighting for my care since I arrived. Yesterday, she came to my room in great distress. She told me that Dr. Shaw had prescribed a medication that she believed was dangerous. She said the dosage was wrong, that it could kill me. I asked what she intended to do. She said she would refuse to administer it, even if it cost her position. I have never met a braver woman. Shaw dismissed her concerns, called her hysterical, sent her home for insubordination. But I saw the fear in his eyes when she challenged him. I believe she was right. If I die, Margaret, it will not be because of Clara Whitmore. It will be because an arrogant man refused to listen to a woman who knew better. Do not let them blame her for his mistake. Your loving brother, Harrison. Clara couldn't see the words anymore. Tears blurred everything. He knew, she choked out. He knew, and he still took the medication. Margaret's voice was thick with grief. Because Dr. Shaw told him that refusing would kill him faster. Harrison trusted him. We all trusted him. Sam took the letter from Clara's trembling hands, read it twice. His jaw tightened with every word. This changes everything, he said. I know. Margaret lifted her chin. That's why I'm here. I want to make this right. I want to clear Miss Whitmore's name and expose Dr. Shaw for the fraud he is. Why now? Clara demanded. Your family destroyed my reputation. Your mother called me a murderer in the newspapers. Why should I believe you've suddenly seen the light? Margaret flinched at the accusation, but she didn't look away. Because my mother is dead, Miss Whitmore. She passed 6 weeks ago. Cancer. Margaret's voice wavered. On her deathbed, she told me she'd always had doubts about what happened to Harrison. She said she'd pushed them aside because it was easier to blame someone, anyone, than to accept that my brother's death was meaningless. Clara felt something crack in her chest. She asked me to find you, to apologize, to make amends if I could. Margaret's tears fell freely now. I know it's too late. I know nothing I do can give you back what you lost. But Harrison would have wanted me to try. The room fell silent. Clara looked at this woman who had helped destroy her life, who had stood in that boardroom and called her negligent, incompetent, dangerous, who had believed the liar over the truth. She should hate her, but all Clara felt was tired. I forgive you, she said quietly. Margaret's eyes widened. What? I forgive you. You believed what you were told. You were grieving. You wanted someone to blame. Clara took a deep breath. I understand that now, better than I did then. Margaret broke down completely. Sam stood awkwardly while the woman sobbed into her hands. Clara moved to sit beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. The question now, Clara said, is what we do with this. Sam held up the letter. We take it to Judge Morrison. This is evidence that Dr. Shaw lied under oath. It's grounds to throw out the warrant. Shaw will claim it's a forgery, Josiah said from the doorway. Let him, Margaret wiped her eyes. I have Harrison's other correspondence. The handwriting will match. And I'm willing to testify under oath that I found it among his personal effects. Garrett Shaw won't give up that easily, Sam warned. He's invested too much in destroying Clara. If we expose his cousin's lies, he loses his leverage over us. Then we don't just defend, Clara's voice hardened. We attack. Everyone looked at her. What do you mean? Sam asked. Garrett Shaw burned our stable. He threatened this ranch. He's been trying to run you off your land for years. Clara stood, a new fire burning in her chest. It's time someone held him accountable. Clara, he's got money, power, connections. And we have the truth. We have witnesses. We have a dead man's letter proving that his precious cousin is a liar and a killer. Clara met Sam's eyes. You told me once that everyone deserves a second chance. Well, maybe it's time Garrett Shaw got what he actually deserves. Sam stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, that rare, real smile that transformed his whole face. Josiah, he said, ride to town tonight. Wake up Judge Morrison. Tell him we've got evidence that changes everything. Yes, boss. Josiah disappeared into the darkness. Sam turned back to Clara. You sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The next morning they rode into Clearwater together. Clara, Sam, Margaret Cole, and every able-bodied man from the Double M. They made quite a sight, a small army of ranch hands escorting 3 people who were about to turn the territory upside down. Judge Morrison met them at the courthouse, a thin man with spectacles and a perpetually worried expression. McAllister, he nodded nervously. Your man said you have new evidence regarding the Whitmore matter? We do. Sam handed over Harrison Cole's letter. This is a deathbed statement from the supposed victim himself, confirming that Miss Whitmore tried to save his life and was punished for it. Morrison read the letter twice. His face paled. If this is genuine... It is, Margaret stepped forward. I'm Margaret Cole, Harrison's sister. I found that letter among his personal effects. I can verify its authenticity, and I'm prepared to testify that my family's accusations against Miss Whitmore were based on lies told to us by Dr. Edmund Shaw. Morrison looked like he'd swallowed something sour. This is highly irregular. The warrant was issued based on sworn statements. Sworn statements from a man who killed his patient and blamed a nurse to cover his mistake. Clara's voice rang clear through the courthouse. Dr. Shaw lied to protect himself. Garrett Shaw repeated those lies to further his own agenda against Mr. McAllister. And an innocent woman lost everything because nobody bothered to ask for the truth. Morrison removed his spectacles and polished them furiously. Miss Whitmore, I'm not unsympathetic to your situation, but these are serious accusations. You're claiming that a respected physician committed perjury and that one of the territory's most prominent ranchers conspired to... I'm claiming what the evidence shows. Clara stepped closer to the judge's desk. Your Honor, I watched my career destroyed, my reputation ruined. My entire life burned to ashes because a powerful man needed someone to blame for his mistake. I ran 2,000 miles, and it still followed me.
All I'm asking, all I've ever asked, is for someone to look at the truth instead of just believing the lies." Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed heavily. "I'll need time to review this evidence, and I'll need to contact the authorities in Boston to verify." The courthouse doors burst open. Garrett Shaw strode in, his face twisted with fury.
"Morrison, what the hell is going on here? I demand to know why my men reported seeing McAllister's people riding into town like some kind of vigilante mob." "Mr. Shaw," Morrison's voice was strained. "This isn't a good time." "I'll decide what's a good time." Shaw's eyes found Clara and narrowed. "Why isn't this woman in custody? I brought you a legal warrant." "A warrant based on fraudulent evidence, Mr. Shaw." Shaw went very still. "What did you say?" Sam held up the letter. "Your cousin lied, Shaw. We have proof."
Harrison Cole wrote a letter the night before he died, naming Clara Whitmore as the one person who tried to save him, and Dr. Shaw as the man who killed him. The blood drained from Shaw's face. That's impossible. Edmund would never." "Edmund would, and Edmund did." Margaret Cole stepped forward. "I'm Harrison's sister, Mr. Shaw, and I'm prepared to testify that my family's accusations against Miss Whitmore were based on lies your cousin told us to protect himself." Shaw's composure cracked. For just a second, Clara saw the fear beneath his arrogance. Then his expression hardened. "This is clearly a conspiracy," he snarled. "McAllister has obviously paid this woman to—" "Paid me?" Margaret's voice rose. "You think I traveled 2,000 miles and betrayed my own family's memory for money? My brother is dead, Mr. Shaw. Dead because your cousin was too proud to listen to a nurse who knew better. All I want is justice." "Morrison." Shaw turned to the judge. "You can't seriously be considering—" "I'm considering all the evidence, Mr. Shaw, which now includes a deathbed statement from the victim himself." Morrison straightened his spectacles. "I'm suspending the warrant against Miss Whitmore pending a full investigation." "You can't do that." "I just did." Morrison's voice firmed. "And frankly, Mr. Shaw, given the seriousness of these allegations against your cousin, you might want to consider your own position very carefully." Shaw's face went from white to red. "This isn't over," he hissed at Sam. "Not by a long shot." "Actually, it is." Sam's voice was calm, deadly calm. "I've got witnesses who'll swear your men set fire to my stable. I've got evidence that you used false documents to try to have an innocent woman arrested. And I've got the ear of every rancher in this territory who's sick of you bullying your way across their land." Shaw took a step back. "You're making a mistake, McAllister. A very big mistake." "No." Sam moved forward until he was inches from Shaw's face. "You made the mistake. The moment you threatened Clara, you declared war on me. And I don't lose wars, Shaw. Ask anyone who fought beside me." Something flickered in Shaw's eyes. Fear, maybe, or the first dawning realization that he'd finally pushed too far. "This territory needs men like me," Shaw said, but his voice had lost its edge. "Men with vision, with resources. Without me, without you, we'll do just fine." Pete's voice came from behind Clara. She turned to see the ranch hands gathered at the courthouse door, their faces hard with determination. "Better, probably." Shaw looked at the men arrayed against him, at Margaret Cole's accusing eyes, at Judge Morrison's grim expression, and at Clara, standing tall and unafraid, the woman he'd tried so hard to destroy. "I'll see you all in hell," he spat. Then he turned and stormed out. The moment he was gone, Clara's legs buckled. Sam caught her before she hit the floor. Easy, I've got you. Is it over? Clara could barely form the words. Is it really over? The warrant's suspended. Sam helped her to a chair. Morrison will have to investigate, but with Harrison's letter and Margaret's testimony, there's no way the charges will stand. Clara looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I never believed. I know. Sam knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. But I told you, didn't I? The truth has a way of coming out. Clara laughed through her tears. You did tell me that. And I also told you something else. Sam's gray eyes held hers. I told you I loved you. That hasn't changed. If anything, watching you stand up to Shaw just now. He shook his head. Clara Whitmore, you are the bravest woman I have ever known. I wasn't brave. I was terrified. That's what makes it brave. Sam lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently.
Clara, I know this isn't the time or place, and God knows we still have a mess to clean up, but...
But what? Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold band. Clara's heart stopped. It was my mother's, Sam said quietly. I've been carrying it around for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Figured there'd never be a perfect time, so I might as well ask when I can't stand waiting anymore. Clara stared at the ring, at Sam's weathered face, at the hope burning in his gray eyes. Sam McAllister, she breathed. Are you proposing to me in a courthouse? I'm proposing to you wherever you'll have me. He swallowed hard. Clara, I've spent 20 years thinking I didn't deserve love, thinking the man who killed his best friend should live alone with his guilt forever. Then you came along and showed me that the past doesn't have to define us, that we can be more than our worst moments, that healing is possible if we're brave enough to reach for it. Clara's tears fell faster. I'm not offering you an easy life, Sam continued. The ranch is hard work. The territory's rough, and God knows I come with enough baggage to fill a freight train. But I'm offering you everything I have. My home, my heart, my future, whatever that's worth. It's worth everything, Clara's voice broke. Sam, it's worth everything. Is that a yes? Clara pulled him to his feet and kissed him right there in front of the judge, the ranch hands, Margaret Cole, and whoever else happened to be watching. Yes, she said against his lips. Yes, yes, yes. A cheer went up from the Double M men. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. Well, this is certainly the most eventful morning I've had in 20 years on the bench. Clara laughed, still crying, still holding on to Sam like she'd never let go. For the first time in 3 months, in 3 years, in longer than she could remember, she felt free. The ride back to the ranch was the happiest of Clara's life. The men whooped and hollered, celebrating their victory over Shaw and Sam's engagement in equal measure. Tommy insisted on riding beside Clara the whole way, grinning so wide she thought his face might split. I knew it, he crowed. I knew the boss would propose. I told Pete, I said, Pete, mark my words, the boss is sweet on Miss Clara. And Pete said I was crazy, but I knew. You've got good instincts, Tommy, Clara said, fighting a smile. Does this mean you're staying forever? It means I'm not going anywhere. Tommy's grin somehow got even wider. Best news I've heard since you said I wouldn't lose my leg. When they reached the Double M, Ezra was waiting on the cookhouse porch. Well, he demanded, what happened? I've been going crazy out here with nobody telling me nothing. Shaw's finished, Sam said, swinging down from his horse. And Clara said yes. Ezra's weathered face split into a smile. About damn time, Samuel McAllister. I was starting to think you'd lost your nerve. Never lost it. Just wanted to make sure the lady knew what she was getting into first. And do you? Ezra turned to Clara. Know what you're getting into? Clara looked around at the ranch she'd come to love, at the men who'd become her family, at Sam standing beside his horse, watching her with those steady gray eyes that had seen her value when no one else would. "I know exactly what I'm getting into," she said, "and I can't wait." Ezra nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now everybody get cleaned up. I'm making a feast tonight, and I don't want dirty cowboys tracking mud through my kitchen." The celebration lasted until well past midnight. Ezra outdid himself. Roast beef, fresh bread, apple pie, and a special cake he claimed to have been saving for the right occasion. The men ate and drank and told stories, their laughter ringing across the valley. Clara sat beside Sam at the head of the table, the gold ring glinting on her finger.
Every few minutes, she caught herself staring at it, still not quite believing it was real.
"You keep looking at that ring like it might disappear," Sam murmured. "Maybe I'm just making sure I'm not dreaming." "You're not dreaming." Sam took her hand and squeezed it. "This is real. We're real." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "Tell me about the wedding. What do you want?" "I want you to be happy." Sam pressed a kiss to her hair. "Whatever kind of ceremony you want, wherever you want it, whenever you want it." "I've waited 20 years to feel like this, Clara. I'm not going to rush you." "What if I don't want to wait?" Sam went still. "What do you mean?" Clara lifted her head to meet his eyes. "I mean, I've been running for 3 months, hiding, surviving. I'm tired of waiting for life to happen. I want to start living it, with you, as soon as possible." Sam's breath caught. "Clara, is there a preacher in Clearwater?" "Reverend Paulson."
"But Clara, how soon do you think he could perform a ceremony?"
"I don't—" Sam shook his head, a disbelieving smile spreading across his face. "A week? Maybe less if I ask nicely?" "Then ask nicely." Clara cupped his face in her hands. "I don't need a fancy dress, or a cathedral wedding, or any of the things I thought I wanted back in Boston. I just need you, Sam. You and this ranch and these ridiculous, wonderful people who've become my family." Sam kissed her, long and deep, right there at the table in front of everyone. The men cheered. "Get a room, boss," Hank shouted. Sam broke the kiss just long enough to throw a roll at Hank's head. "1 week," he said to Clara. "1 week, and you'll be my wife." "1 week," Clara agreed. "I can't wait." Later, after the celebration had wound down and the men had stumbled off to the bunkhouse, Clara and Sam sat alone on the porch of the main house.
The stars spread across the sky like scattered diamonds, and the night air carried the scent of summer grass.
"Sam?" Clara's voice was soft in the darkness. "Hmm? Thank you." "For what?" "For stopping that day in Clearwater. For seeing me when no one else would. For giving me a chance when I had nothing left." Sam was quiet for a moment. "I didn't give you anything you didn't earn, Clara. You proved yourself 100 times over. The men respect you because you earned their respect. I love you because you showed me what it looks like to be brave." "I'm not brave. I'm just stubborn." "Same thing, out here." Sam pulled her closer. "Clara, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "That boy, Tommy, the one you saved." Clara nodded. "His full name is Thomas Reed." Sam's voice was rough. "Same as my friend, the one I had to, the one who died in the war." Clara's heart ached. "I know, you told me."
"What I didn't tell you is that when Tommy showed up 3 years ago, half-starved and scared, I almost turned him away. I couldn't look at him without seeing Thomas, without remembering what I'd done." "But you didn't turn him away." "No, because Ezra said something that stuck with me. He said, 'Samuel, the dead don't need our guilt. They need us to do better.'" Sam's voice cracked. "So I took Tommy in, gave him a job, a place to belong, and every day I tried to do right by him, to give him the chances Thomas never got." Clara's eyes filled with tears.
You're a good man, Sam McAllister. I'm trying to be. He met her gaze. Because of you, I think I might actually believe that now. Clara kissed him softly. We're going to have a good life, she whispered. You and me and this ranch and this family we found. It's going to be hard sometimes, but it's going to be worth it. I know, Sam said. I already know. They sat together in the darkness, watching the stars, until the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. And for the first time and longer than either of them could remember, the future looked bright. The week before the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and joy. Clara had never seen the ranch so alive. Ezra spent every waking moment in the cookhouse, planning a feast that he claimed would put Clearwater's finest restaurant to shame. The men cleaned and polished everything in sight, transforming the main house into something almost elegant. Even Josiah cracked a smile when Tommy appointed himself official wedding coordinator. You don't even know what that means, Pete grumbled. Means I boss everyone around and look important, Tommy shot back. Same thing the boss does, just with more walking. Sam threw a dish towel at his head. Margaret Cole stayed at the ranch, helping Clara prepare. The two women had formed an unlikely bond over shared grief and the slow work of healing. Harrison would have loved this, Margaret said one evening as they sat together, mending the lace on a wedding dress that Ezra had somehow procured from Denver. He always said you deserve better than what Boston gave you. Clara's hands stilled on the fabric. He barely knew me. He knew enough. He wrote about you in other letters too, you know. Said you were the only nurse who treated him like a person instead of a patient. Margaret smiled sadly. I think he was a little in love with you at the end. Clara's eyes burned. I wish I could have saved him. You tried. That's more than anyone else did. Margaret reached over and squeezed her hand. And now you get to save others. Build a life. Be happy. Harrison would have wanted that more than anything. The morning of the wedding, Clara woke before dawn. She lay in her narrow bed in the cabin, listening to the ranch come alive around her. Horses nickering, men calling to each other, the clatter of pots from Ezra's cookhouse. In a few hours, she would be Clara McAllister. The thought made her heart race, not with fear, but with a fierce, overwhelming joy. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Miss Clara? Tommy's voice came through the wood. You awake? I'm awake, Tommy. Good, 'cause Ezra says breakfast is ready, and if you don't eat something, you'll faint at the altar, and that would be embarrassing for everyone. Clara laughed and swung her legs out of bed. Tell Ezra I'll be there in 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am. She heard Tommy's uneven footsteps hurrying away, his healing leg still giving him a slight limp. Clara dressed carefully, saving the wedding gown for later. When she stepped outside, the summer morning hit her with warmth and the smell of blooming wildflowers. Sam was waiting on the path between her cabin and the main house. Morning, he said, that slow smile spreading across his weathered face. Morning. Aren't you supposed to be getting ready? I am ready. He gestured at his clean shirt and pressed trousers. This is as fancy as I get. You look perfect. And you look beautiful. Sam stepped closer, his gray eyes soft. Nervous? Terrified, Clara admitted. Good, me too. He took her hands in his. Clara, before this day gets away from us, I need you to know something. What? Whatever happens from here on, whatever challenges we face, whatever storms blow through, I will never regret this. Not for 1 second. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. Clara's throat tightened. Sam McAllister, if you make me cry before the ceremony, I will never forgive you. He laughed and pulled her into his arms. Then I'll stop talking and just hold you for a minute. How's that? Perfect, she whispered against his chest. Absolutely perfect.
The ceremony took place at noon in front of the main house. Reverend Paulson had ridden out from Clearwater the night before, and he stood now, with his worn Bible, looking slightly overwhelmed by the crowd that had gathered. Word of the wedding had spread, and ranchers from across the territory had come to witness the union of Samuel McAllister and the woman who had stood up to Garrett Shaw. Clara walked down an aisle of packed dirt, wildflowers scattered at her feet. Her arm linked through Josiah's. "You sure about this?" Josiah murmured. "More sure than I've ever been about anything." "Good." His usually stoic face softened. "He's a good man, Clara. You're good for each other."
"Thank you, Josiah, for everything."
He nodded once and handed her over to Sam, who was waiting at the makeshift altar with tears in his eyes.
"You're crying," Clara whispered. "Shut up. It's allergies." "In June?"
Terrible allergies. Year-round. Clara bit her lip to keep from laughing. Reverend Paulson cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." The ceremony was simple and brief, just the way Clara wanted it. She barely heard the Reverend's words over the pounding of her own heart. All she could see was Sam. All she could feel was his hand holding hers. When Reverend Paulson asked if anyone objected to the union, a ripple of tension went through the crowd. Clara's stomach clenched. But the moment passed in silence. Garrett Shaw was nowhere to be seen. Word had it he'd left the territory entirely after Judge Morrison opened an investigation into his land dealings. "Then by the power vested in me," Reverend Paulson declared, "I pronounce you husband and wife. Mr. McAllister, you may kiss your bride." Sam cupped Clara's face in his calloused hands.
"I love you,"
he said, quiet enough that only she could hear.
"I love you too."
And then he kissed her, and the whole territory erupted in cheers. The celebration that followed was like nothing Clara had ever experienced. Ezra's feast lived up to every boast: roast beef, fresh bread, 3 kinds of pie, and a wedding cake that looked almost too beautiful to eat. The men danced and drank and told increasingly outrageous stories about Sam's bachelor days. Margaret laughed until she cried, and even Josiah was seen tapping his foot to the fiddle music. Tommy insisted on making a toast. "To the boss and Miss Clara," he said, raising his glass with his good hand. "When I showed up here 3 years ago, I was nothing. Just a scared kid with nobody in the world. Boss gave me a job, a home, a reason to get up in the morning." His voice cracked. "And then Miss Clara came along and saved my life. Literally. She walked into a burning stable and pulled me out." The crowd went quiet.
"I don't have family," Tommy continued. "Not by blood, anyway. But standing here, looking at all of you..."
He swept his glass across the gathered crowd. "I reckon I've got more family than I know what to do with. And that's because of them. The boss and Miss Clara. They made this place a home." He raised his glass higher. "So here's to love. Here's to second chances. And here's to the 2 people who taught me what it means to belong." Clara was crying openly now. So was Sam, though he'd deny it later. "To love and second chances," the crowd echoed. Tommy grinned and drained his glass in one gulp. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Clara found herself standing alone at the edge of the festivities. So much had changed in such a short time. 3 months ago, she'd been a broken woman crying in the dirt, with nothing but $2 and a ruined reputation. Now she was married to a good man, surrounded by people who loved her, with a future brighter than anything she dared to imagine. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. McAllister." Clara turned to find Sam watching her, his eyes warm in the fading light.
Mrs. McAllister. She tested the name. That's going to take some getting used to. Got the rest of our lives to practice. Sam moved to stand beside her. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. How different my life is from what I expected. Better or worse? Better. Clara leaned against him. So much better. Sam wrapped his arm around her shoulders. You know what I was thinking about? Tell me. I was thinking about that day in Clearwater, when I first saw you. His voice grew rough. You were on your knees in the dirt, crying, and something in my chest just broke open. I didn't even know you, but I knew I couldn't leave you there, couldn't let you disappear. Why not? I don't know. Instinct, maybe. Or fate, if you believe in that sort of thing. Sam pressed a kiss to her hair. All I know is that my whole life I've been running from my past. Then I saw you, and suddenly I wanted to run toward something instead. Clara's heart swelled. Sam, you saved me, Clara. You might think I saved you that day, but it was the other way around. You gave me a reason to hope again, to believe that maybe I wasn't beyond redemption after all. Clara turned in his arms, facing him fully. We saved each other, she said. That's what love is, isn't it? Two broken people choosing to be whole together. Sam kissed her forehead. I like that. I thought you might. They stood together in the gathering darkness, watching the stars emerge one by one, until Ezra's bellowing voice summoned them back to the celebration. Where the hell did the bride and groom go? I've got cake to serve, and I ain't serving it to myself. Clara laughed. We should probably go back. Probably. But Sam didn't move. Clara, whatever comes next, whatever challenges we face, I want you to know that I've never been happier than I am right now. Right here. With you. Me neither, Clara whispered. They walked back to their celebration hand in hand, two wounded souls who had finally found their way home. 5 years later, Clara stood on the porch of the expanded main house, watching the sun rise over the Double M. So much had changed since that first summer. The ranch had grown, twice the horses, 3 times the hands, and a reputation as the fairest operation in the territory. Sam had been elected to the Territorial Livestock Commission, a position he used to advocate for better treatment of workers and animals alike. His name, once shadowed by whispered rumors about the war, was now spoken with respect throughout Wyoming. Clara's medical practice had flourished beyond anything she'd imagined. What started as treating ranch hands had grown into a proper clinic, housed in a building Sam had constructed next to the main house. Women rode for miles to see her, trusting her with their children, their pregnancies, their fears. She'd trained 2 young women as assistants, passing on the knowledge that Massachusetts General had tried to silence. Last month, a letter had arrived from Boston. Dr. Edmund Shaw had been stripped of his medical license. An investigation, prompted by Margaret Cole's testimony and Harrison's letter, had uncovered a pattern of malpractice stretching back years. 3 more patients had died from his mistakes. 3 more families had been told lies. Clara had cried when she read the letter, not from satisfaction or vindication, but from grief for all those lives that could have been saved. Mama! The voice pulled Clara from her thoughts. A small figure came running around the corner of the house, dark curls bouncing, gray eyes bright with mischief. 3-year-old Thomas Samuel McAllister, named for the friend Sam had lost and the man he'd become, launched himself at his mother's legs. Good morning, my little tornado. Clara scooped him up, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Where's your father? Daddy's with the horses. He said I could ride Starlight today. Did he now? Clara raised an eyebrow. And what did Daddy say about running in the house? Thomas's face fell. Not to do it. Mm-hmm. And what did you do? Ran in the house? He peeked up at her through impossibly long lashes.
But I ran out too, so it evens out? Clara bit back a laugh. Nice try. No riding until after breakfast, and only if you apologize to Ezra for tracking mud through his kitchen. Yes, ma'am. Thomas squirmed until she set him down, then raced off toward the cookhouse, pausing just long enough to shout, "Sorry, Uncle Ezra," through the door before continuing on his way. Clara shook her head, smiling. He gets that from you. Sam's voice came from behind her. She turned to find her husband climbing the porch steps, his face weathered but content. Gets what from me? The running, the charm, the complete inability to follow rules. I follow rules. Clara, you walked into a burning building against my direct orders. That was different. Was it? Clara grinned. Yes, those were your rules. I only ignore the unreasonable ones. Sam laughed and pulled her into his arms. God, I love you. I know. She kissed him softly. How are the horses? Good. The new mare is going to foal any day now. Josiah's keeping an eye on her. Sam's expression grew more serious. I also got a telegram this morning. From who? Margaret. She's coming to visit next month, bringing her fiancé. Clara's heart lifted. Margaret Cole had healed over the years, slowly letting go of her guilt and building a new life. The news that she'd found someone made Clara happier than she could express. That's wonderful. There's more. She said she wants to talk to us about something. A foundation, she called it. Something to honor Harrison's memory. What kind of foundation? Medical training for women. Scholarships for nurses who otherwise couldn't afford education. Sam's eyes met hers. She wants to name it after you. Clara's breath caught. After me? The Whitmore Foundation for Female Medical Education. Has a nice ring to it. Clara couldn't speak. The idea that her name, the name that had been dragged through mud and scandal, could become a symbol of hope for other women. You're crying, Sam said gently. Happy tears. I know. He held her tighter. You deserve this, Clara. Every bit of it. That afternoon, Clara walked the grounds of the Double M, visiting the familiar places that had become her home. She stopped at Tommy's cabin. He had his own place now, a small building near the horse corral. At 22, he'd grown into a fine young man, skilled with horses and fiercely loyal to the ranch that had raised him. His leg had healed well, leaving only a slight limp that he wore like a badge of honor. Tells the ladies I'm dangerous, he'd joked once. Josiah still served as foreman, his dark eyes as sharp as ever, his respect for Clara evident in every interaction. He'd never been one for words, but last Christmas he'd given her a hand-carved medicine box with her initials worked into the lid. For the healer, he'd said simply. Ezra remained the heart of the ranch, his cookhouse still the gathering place for stories, laughter, and the best food in the territory. He'd slowed down some in recent years, but refused to let anyone else touch his stove. I'll cook until I die, he'd declared, and probably after. Heaven better have a kitchen. Pete had retired, replaced by his nephew, a young man just as gruff, but twice as competent. Hank had moved on to a ranch closer to town, where his wife could be near her family. Luis had become the ranch's horse trainer, his quiet patience perfect for the work. They were family, all of them, bound not by blood, but by something stronger. Shared struggle, shared triumph, shared love. Clara made her way to the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch. 2 headstones stood there, simple and weathered by 5 Wyoming winters. One bore the name of Catherine McAllister, Sam's first wife. Clara had never known her, but she felt a kinship with the woman who had loved Sam first, who had seen his worth when the world tried to tell him he had none. The other headstone was newer, placed just last year. Hello, Ezra, Clara said softly, kneeling beside the grave. The old cook had passed peacefully in his sleep one October night, a smile on his face and a prayer on his lips. The whole ranch had mourned him, but none more than Clara, who had lost not just a friend, but a father figure. "Thomas is growing so fast," she told him. "You'd love him, Ezra. He's got Sam's stubbornness and my temper and your appetite. 3 helpings of everything, just like you always said a growing boy needs." She placed a wildflower on the grave. "Thank you for everything. For feeding me when I was too proud to admit I was starving. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For being the father I needed when my own was gone." The wind rustled through the grass, and Clara could almost hear Ezra's gruff voice. "Stop crying, girl. I'm up here eating the best food in creation and watching over all of you. Nothing to be sad about." Clara laughed through her tears. "You're right. You're always right." She stood, brushing off her skirts, and made her way back down the hill. That evening, the ranch gathered for supper, just as they had thousands of times before. The dining table was full. Ranch hands, their wives, a few children who'd been born on the Double M over the years. Young Thomas sat between his parents, chattering about the horses and asking when Uncle Tommy would teach him to rope. "When you're old enough to not lasso your own feet," Tommy said. "That was one time." "Once is enough. I'm still finding rope burns." The table erupted in laughter. Clara looked around at the faces of the people she loved. At Tommy, no longer a starving orphan, but a confident young man. At Josiah, who had finally learned to smile. At her son, who would never know what it felt like to be unwanted. At Sam, sitting at the head of the table, his gray eyes finding hers across the chaos. He raised his glass slightly. A private toast, a shared moment in a room full of family. Clara raised hers in return. After dinner, when the dishes were cleared and the hands had retreated to the bunkhouse, Clara and Sam sat together on the porch. Young Thomas was asleep upstairs, exhausted from a day of running and playing and learning the beginnings of ranch life. "Do you ever think about Boston?" Sam asked. "Sometimes." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "Not with longing anymore, just wondering what might have been. What do you think you'd be doing if none of this had happened?" Clara considered the question. "Working in a hospital, probably. Unmarried. Following orders from doctors who didn't respect me." She shook her head. "Living, but not really alive." "And now?" "Now?" Clara smiled. "Now I have everything I never knew I wanted. A home, a family, work that matters, a man who loves me exactly as I am." "That last part's my favorite," Sam murmured. "Mine too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. "Sam? Remember what you asked me that first day in Clearwater?" "Which part?" "You said, 'What kind of work are you looking for?'" Clara turned to face him. "I've been thinking about that question a lot lately." "Yeah?" "I didn't know how to answer it then. I was so lost, so broken. I thought I was looking for employment, but really—" She took his hand in hers. "Really, I was looking for home, for belonging, for someone who would see me as more than what I'd lost." Sam's eyes glistened. "Clara, you asked me what I was looking for, and the answer is, I was looking for you." She squeezed his hand. "I just didn't know it yet." Sam pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I love you, Clara McAllister." "I love you too, Sam. More than I ever thought I could love anything." They stayed there on the porch until the moon rose high and the ranch settled into peaceful sleep. And when they finally went inside, climbing the stairs to the bedroom they'd shared for 5 years, Clara paused at the window. The double M spread out below her. The barns, the corrals, the bunkhouse, the cookhouse where a new cook now prepared meals in Ezra's honor. Horses grazed in moonlit pastures. Somewhere, an owl called into the darkness. This was her home, her life, her family. She had come west looking for escape and found something infinitely more valuable. She had found where she belonged. Sam's arms wrapped around her from behind. "What are you thinking?" Clara smiled, leaning back into his embrace. "I'm thinking," she said softly, "that sometimes the worst days of our lives lead us to the best. That sometimes we have to lose everything before we can find what truly matters. And that sometimes," she turned in his arms, meeting his eyes, "a single question from a stranger in a dusty street can change everything." "What kind of work are you looking for?" Sam echoed, smiling. Clara rose on tiptoe and kissed him. "I found it," she whispered against his lips. "I found everything." And she had. Clara Whitmore had walked into Clearwater, Wyoming, with nothing but $2 and a broken heart. She had fallen to her knees in the dirt, ready to give up on everything. But a cowboy had stopped. A cowboy had asked one simple question. And that question had led her to love, to purpose, to a family that chose her when the world had thrown her away. Some people spend their whole lives searching for home. Clara had found hers in the most unexpected place, in the arms of a wounded man, in the heart of a wild territory, in the rough and beautiful community of people who had nothing in common except their determination to survive. She had been rejected, abandoned, and condemned. And in the end, she had been redeemed. Not by a man, not by circumstance, but by her own courage, her own resilience, her own stubborn refusal to let the lies of others define her truth. Clara McAllister stood in her home, surrounded by love, and knew with absolute certainty that every step of her journey, every heartbreak, every rejection, every tear, had been leading her exactly where she was meant to be. The woman who had fallen in the dust had risen, and she would never fall again.